Welcome to another edition of Vital Signs. I'm Bonnie Chilam.
And I'm Dusty Rigsby. You're in the right place for a fascinating half-hour look at what it's like to be a medical student here at the Loma Linda University School of Medicine.
We'll eavesdrop on Dr. Roger Hadley as he visits with the students we followed in our documentary series.
And we'll talk with two of the people who help guide students through their four-year medical education.
All of this and even more on this edition of Vital Signs.
We've been following 6 medical students through key parts of the current school year. We finally brought them together for the first time, just for this edition of Vital Signs. Dr. Roger Hadley, Dean of the School of Medicine, joined them.
When you think back and you look at Laura and you look at Sylvester, Laura being a freshman and Sylvester being a sophomore, do you have any, do you kind of wish you could trade places with them? Or?
It gets better. I think it gets better.
Definitely. And when you were a freshman, when you started close to 4 years ago, did you ever think you'd be where you are right now so quickly?
These last 2 years, definitely. In the middle of second year, that was a long year. I mean, it was quick, but remembering all those hours studying was long. But it has come by quick. I think yesterday was the last day of wearing my short white coat.
And I don't know if that's been clear to the audience, but medical students are identified by their shorter white coat. As you move into your internship year and as you become a fully practicing physician, you wear a longer coat. So there's no more use for the short white coat.
Right.
Any questions you have for Lindsay, a senior? She's a valuable resource to you.
Oh, yes.
She is an expert in medical education, as is Mark, being seniors, and they now know what works and what doesn't work. Any questions you might want to ask her?
I have a question for Mark.
Yeah, sure.
I followed you at the beginning of the year in ER. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
I thought you were interested in ER at the time, so I'm kind of curious about what made the decision for psychiatry. I mean,
Sure.
you mentioned the family life,
Yeah.
and that's very important, but what really, what else?
I think you gotta love what you do. And I didn't find that I loved ER. It was too much stress, too many nights, and the medicine there was that was practiced, there was no continuity. So there were a lot of things that I realized didn't fit with my personality. So and I found that I like psychiatry more. The pathology of the mind is fascinating to me. I like humanities, and that's one discipline in medicine where that is really talked about and prized. So that's important to me.
And I think what you'll find third year also, I know me and my friends, each week we ask each other, so what do you want to do this week? And we change specialties each week. Like this week I want to be urologist, and then we like research everything about urology and see if that's what we want to do. So third year especially, you're like, some people know as soon as they walk into med school first year, that's what they want to do, and others they change, every 5 minutes. And so it's no surprise, that he wanted to do ER then and now he's psych. So you'll probably go through the same cycle too, Does anybody want to comment on maybe growth or lack of growth of spirituality, your spiritual growth during medical school? I would say that second year was that year for me. It was a year I felt like I wasn't growing, and then the year where I knew God intensely. And as I studied for step one, and I took the test, and then the test was done, and I just had to wait for the scores. A month later, really, I just had to have faith in God that whatever happened, whether I scored high, whether I scored low, that was God's will. And He will allow me to be a doctor no matter what, and He will allow me to serve wherever, I'm supposed to be. And that whole experience really allowed me to trust in God. And I'm remembering that now, even now, as I'm thinking about the match coming up. Same thing. It's no different. The same God that helped me through step one is the same God that can help me match. And so really, the second year was my pinnacle, I believe.
on a different aspect, medical school in general so far has given me a structure. I feel like my devotion time is lousy during the breaks more than during the school year, because I know I have to be in class a certain time. I know I have to study, and I know I have to get up a certain time, and I have to do my devotion. I think medical school gives you a little structure, and that helps my spirituality a lot.
I can't point to one instance or even 1 year, maybe more the first and second years, where it was just a continual reminder of God's faithfulness, or what I believe is His plan for me and His calling for me. Because there were so many times, this time I really am going to fail this test. I had those thoughts, and time and again it would come back, and a test that I felt like I just really bombed, it would come back and I'd get a better score than another one that I thought I killed. So for me, that was encouraging. One of the toughest times of my life where I felt like I was face to face with failure a lot more than maybe I had been in the past. It was just a continual, in your weakness I am strength.
I would agree. Even now, like looking back on like first years and second years, I'm like, man, my third year I made it through. I'm like, I know that it's nothing that I could have done like on myself. It's only God. Like even getting into medical school is only a miracle from God. But I can truly say that the Lord has led me to this point, and I know that He has something planned for me.
Was there any poignant moment that you can tell me as a medical student in taking care of a patient, seeing perhaps a child with an illness, with a mother grieving? I mean, can you share any of those moments? Was there any one time that you go, my goodness, what I'm doing is something extraordinary?
I think inherently just being able to be part of something so monumental in people's lives. It's such an intimate thing. I remember I was actually, I believe, on whole person care, one of my fourth year electives, and we were following the chaplain around. And we were in the pediatric intensive care unit. And there was a father there and his child, about, I would say, 7, on a ventilator, unconscious. And he had just received some very bad news, basically that she'd had a very bad seizure and was never going to be the same. Prognosis was very grim. She was probably not going to get out of the ICU. And we went in there, and he just kind of looked up at us. It was the chaplain and I, maybe one other person. He just, he started crying. And I just remember seeing that moment of the dad, his child. And, I'm not sure that we could really do anything for him. We stood by him and put our hands on his shoulders. And after a few minutes, the chaplain asked him if he could pray, and he shook his head yes. And these are just incredibly intimate moments. That person's life will never, ever, ever be the same. And to be able to be there and hope that you can make a difference in that part, whether you're just standing there, is such an honor and very humbling. So that's a moment obviously still affects me, and I haven't thought about it. You kind of compartmentalize, but there are several moments like that I've had that just human life.
Yes, remarkable stories. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming. This has kind of been a reunion that I've been looking forward to for a year, and I'd like to take just a moment and have prayer. So let's bow our heads.
We'll be back right after this.
Welcome back. The first great hurdle an aspiring medical student has to face is getting accepted into medical school. Loma Linda receives thousands of applications every year, but only a relative few can be chosen. Dr. Stephen Narati, Associate Dean for Admissions, tells us what it takes to get accepted here at Loma Linda.
Loma Linda University School of Medicine exists to continue the healing and teaching ministry of Jesus Christ, to make man whole. We look at an applicant through that lens. We look beyond the academics. We look for people who are first of all, committed to the kind of lifestyle and mission that we're committed to. We look for students who are disciplined, those who have a high level of integrity, which is extremely important for a physician. We look for young people who have the ability to plan, to organize, and to execute. Those who are involved with others, whether it's on their campus, whether it's in their community, and also involved in their church. This last year, Loma Linda University had just shy of 5,000 applications, and those 5,000 applications need to be culled down to an entering class of 165 students. So you can imagine that's quite a process of trying to get through all of those applications and finding the best ones.
Joining us now is Dr. Leonard Werner, Senior Associate Dean for Medical Student Education. Dr. Werner oversees the training of medical students during their entire 4 years here at Loma Linda. Here, too, is Dr. Tamara Schenkel, Associate Dean for Clinical Education. She helps guide students through their last 2 years at the School of Medicine. Welcome, Dr. Schenkel, Dr. Werner. Dr. Werner, can you tell us what it's like for a student to transition from college to medical school?
Probably the first thing the student would notice in the transition is a change in the volume of information that they're forced to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I think there's college courses that are probably as difficult or even more difficult than what students take in medical school, but the amount of information that students have to deal with on a day-to-day basis in medical school is probably new for them. I think it takes them probably a year to come to grips with the fact that they really can't learn it all. And a lot of our students who struggle, I think really, they take longer at realizing that than the students that succeed. So in my mind, it's trying to have the student appreciate the significance of what each part of this education is giving them, and not just trying to be a sponge and soak up everything in its totality. And I think that's really difficult for some students. You know, medical students are very smart. They all have very high IQs, and they all can pretty much learn whatever you hand them. But again, the discriminating medical student is the one I think that learns how to take what matters and use it, and I think that's a real challenge for a lot of these students.
Isn't that a good training for the clinical life later, trying to separate the important information from the unimportant?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's, hopefully they because we're giving them a kind of a taste of the clinical life early in the freshman year, they're actually maybe appreciating that a little bit earlier in their education than they did 10 years ago.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how, as a freshman, they're getting a taste of clinical life?
Yeah, we came up with a program that it was about 4 or 5 years ago now, where each freshman medical student spends about, I think it's 6 weeks of their freshman year on the inpatient services in the hospital, shadowing either a 3rd or 4th year student. And it's kind of a vocational type of training. It's not a training where they're expected to really learn how to take care of patients. It's a training where they're supposed to see how physicians function and hopefully impart a sense of that I can't learn it all. That there's segments of what I'm going to be exposed to that seem like they're really going to matter, and if I can pay attention to those pieces of my education, I can hopefully do better as I progress through the 2 years.
Dr. Schenkel, can you tell us what it's like transitioning from classroom to the clinical setting for students?
I can tell you that most of the time the students are very excited to be entering the heart of what they consider medicine. Sitting in the classroom, they're all looking forward to the day when they're actually interacting with patients and applying what they're learning. So I think that there's a lot of excitement. At the same time, the expectations definitely change. They're more living the life of a physician. They're expected to come to the hospital very early in the morning and to stay and care for the patients until, you know, the job is done. And that is definitely a difference from when you had a choice of whether to go to lecture or not. And now you're expected as part of a profession to be there. I think the other transition that's sometimes a challenge is the material that they need to learn is not as accessible maybe in one place. So if you have a patient and you don't know quite what's going on with them, they need to learn where to go to find that information, and kind of it's definitely a different studying pattern and technique than they've experienced in the first 2 years.
Thank you very much, Dr. Schenkel.
Oh, you're welcome.
Dr. Werner, thank you for being here with us.
You're welcome.
Stay with us for the concluding chapter in our story of student life here at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. We'll be right back.
It's hard to believe it's already been a year and it's really over. I've enjoyed what I have learned, but I am a lot more consciously aware of how much I don't know when it comes to medicine, and how much that I really hope that I learn within the next 3 years before I, go out and start my residency and actually become a practicing doctor.
I don't think I'll ever feel like a doctor. I may like to be called doctor, but I don't think I ever fully feel like it, because you just feel inadequate. There's always something you don't know. There's always some patient that completely stumps you. You don't know why they have this.
I would definitely compare medical school to a marathon. You cannot see the finish line, but you still have to keep going. You just have to have that vision in your mind. When I run long distance races, I just focus on the next mile instead of the next 9, 10 miles.
It feels good to be in a hospital, but it's still very daunting. You really have no idea what's going on still. I mean, yeah, you know some information from first year, but really the majority is what you learn in second year. So pretty much we just walk around and pretend like we know what's going on and really have no idea what's going on. I've often thought to myself that I've lost the most confidence in myself in this 1 year than I have in my entire life, just because of medical school and just how it is.
I know that I will one day be a doctor. Well, it may be a year and a half, I will be a doctor. And whether I feel comfortable or not, people are going to expect me to act like a doctor and treat people like a doctor.
Just the other day, I was just so almost discouraged. And as I was walking, I was just singing a hymn. He leadeth me, whatever I go through, wherever I am, it's God's hand that leads me. And He'll bring me through.
It is just a great feeling. Got the Step 1 score, I passed, so you're officially a third year, and you can feel like, okay, it's gonna go downhill from here. Because now you're actually doing what you came here to do, interacting with patients, trying to manage the care, trying to diagnose. In fact, I had a couple of instances when I picked up certain diseases and actually told my attending, and he was like, yeah, that's right. And I was like, yeah, I learned something in 2 years. After you say the diagnosis, they're asking you, so what are you going to do about it? And that's when you kind of blank out. Like, oh, I guess I have to think of that too.
You know, I remember looking at this from the other side and thinking, I don't know, this is tougher than I thought, and this is a long, long climb. And now I'm pretty much at the top, and it was a really good feeling. You know, I'm at the top before I tumble down the hill into intern year and feel overwhelmed again, but it's a huge thing.
One of my good friends, Travis, just, you know, we're kind of talking about this. So, you know, I asked him, so was it the right thing? Are you happy you did this now that it's basically done? And we both kind of decided that it was the right thing to do, because if we didn't do it, we always would have wondered. It wasn't something that would be handed to us. So it wasn't something that we have in our background. And to us, it represented a significant accomplishment and the exercise of the faculties that God has given us. And so, you know, medicine is kind of it for us. And we figured for no other reason than that, it was probably a good thing to do.
Lindsay Bautista. Lindsay had the privilege of visiting the country of Lesotho on an international medicine elective this year. She says the experience reaffirmed her goal of making international mission work a prominent part of her future. Lindsay will be staying at Loma Linda University Children's Hospital as a pediatric resident. Mark Warren. Mark says, I love being married to my best friend, and we're enjoying the journey of raising our 3 boys, Asher, Micah, and Jonathan, together. I enjoy spending time in the outdoors with my family, exploring the wonders of God's creation, and we are very much looking forward to continuing the adventure in Minnesota. Mark will be moving to Mayo Clinic, Rochester, Minnesota, for a residency in psychiatry.
I get goosebumps thinking about it, like just one more year, 365 days, and I will be done with medical schools.
One day I won't be a student, I'll be an attending, and I'll get to have even more fun with my patients, you know, because they'll actually be my patients, and I'll be their doctor, not their student doctor.
I want to give a special welcome to each one of you for being with us this morning to recognize the accomplishments certainly of the graduates, but if I could say also the accomplishments of the faculty and all the others who have been involved in molding young lives as they've wandered through this university.
I can say and I can claim the degree, but it's such a loaded title, doctor, and I think it's going to take a long time before I really feel that that's true.
Would you please stand for the conferral of your degrees?
Medical school has oftentimes, especially in first and second year, made me ask myself, can I do this? Am I good enough? Does God really want me here? A lot of the questions that have come out of medical school is just really questioning, 1, my character, and 2, my talents, and 3, what I'm really here for, what I want.
Lindsay Nicole Bautista.
I think, you know, once I walk across that stage and grab the diploma, I think there will be, not that that's a magical moment in any sense, but understanding that now the title is official, I think it will in some ways be empowering.
Mark Brandon Warren.
I think it's probably one of the biggest accomplishments that I'll have in life that I can mark out and say, here. I'm hoping that there'll be more later where I can look back, but I have a feeling that as far as tangible, concrete things, this is definitely one of the biggest.
You realize how much people have invested in you, and I'm just really, really grateful. You know, they've given you the gift of being able to practice competent medicine. What do you think, Micah? Who's Daddy, huh?
Dr. Daddy now.
Dr. Daddy.
It's actually in here. That's so awesome.
Everything that needs to be
stuff is even. So, this is it. Hopefully the movers come sometime today. Loma Linda, to be able to, produce students that match where we match and go on to do the things that its graduates do is really remarkable, because I feel like they've maintained their focus and the quality of instructors that they get and their commitment not just to good science but to enabling us to become good physicians and whole ourselves spiritually.
Certainly, this is still God's school. I mean, no Adventist institution is perfect. This is still God's school, and I still believe that God is blessing this institution. And if I had to redo med school 10 times over, I'd come here again, because I've really enjoyed my experiences.
People are looking up to you like doctors. You have something to offer. Believe it or not, it's just been 3 weeks, and I've already had instances where people are just grateful that you listen to them. I think that's a great blessing.
For many people in college, it was the brains that got them through, but in medical school, it's the determination that gets you through. It is very much a trying in the fire. I just hope I come out gold and don't get burned in the process.
Lindsay.
Yeah.
Lindsay, okay, you ready to start? Here's your packet. Okay. Here's your pager.
All right.
And then white coats.
That's what makes you feel like a doctor, your coat length. You can ask any medical student, especially the tall ones where their coat is coming up to here and it looks like a halter top.
For medical school, I had a coat that came to about here.
My long white coat. That's what I want.
And now, it's longer.
Special thanks to our 6 medical students. We wish you all the best as you continue in your journeys towards being a doctor. Thanks also to all of today's participants.
And a sincere thank you to the faculty, staff, and students at Loma Linda University School of Medicine and Loma Linda University Medical Center for their kind cooperation in the production of this Vital Signs series.
Let's see if you can guess the answer to today's question. How many examinations will a student take during their 4 years in medical school?
As usual, watch for the answer on the screen in just a minute. Thanks for watching.
Goodbye.